Silence, the cruelest form of warfare. It's a blade without a sound, a strike without a shadow. It's the void that echoes louder than 1,000 screams. Silence is the weapon that leaves no trace, but its scars run deep. Most crave chaos, crave attention, crave the satisfaction of a reaction. But silence cuts deeper than any words ever could. It's the mirror that forces them to see their own emptiness, to beg for the validation of your anger, of your words. Silence is the absence of your presence, a hollow reminder that what they've lost is something they can never replace. People can tolerate rage. They can tolerate arguments, insults, the back and forth of a vicious exchange. But silence? Silence is torture. It's the suffocating darkness that fills the space where they used to wield control, where they used to pull strings and expect you to dance. When you stay silent, you leave them with their own thoughts, their own twisted reflections. And in that silence, their own insecurities swell, their own weaknesses fester. They want your response, crave it, need it, because it's proof that they still have a grip on your mind. But when you say nothing, when you refuse to play their game, when you starve their ego of the reaction it so desperately feeds on, it shatters them. People need your anger to feel important, need your arguments to confirm that they're worthy of your attention. But silence is dismissal. It's saying that even your words are too valuable to waste on them, that your energy is too precious to be spent on meaningless noise. It's the void that swallows them whole, leaving them flailing in the emptiness of their own irrelevance. Because silence speaks louder than any scream ever could. It tells them that they no longer matter, that their attempts to control you have crumbled into dust. It tells them that they are powerless, and that realization that drives the ego mad. Imagine their frustration, their rage, when confronted with your silence, when every petty taunt, every carefully constructed manipulation meets a cold, empty void. There's nothing more infuriating to an ego built on control than being met with indifference. Silence is the greatest insult. It's the refusal to acknowledge, the refusal to validate. It's standing in the eye of the storm, calm and unmoved, watching as their fury swirls around you, powerless to drag you into the chaos. Silence isn't surrender. It's domination. It's the calm assurance that no matter how much they scream into the darkness, it will never echo back. And when you choose silence, you're choosing power. You're choosing to let them drown in the echoes of their own madness, choosing to starve their ego of the very thing it craves most, significance. Because every word you don't speak, every reaction you don't give, every emotion you refuse to display, drives the blade of your silence deeper into the heart of their pride. They'll lash out, desperate to break you, to pull a sound from your lips, to force you to acknowledge their existence. But that's the beauty of silence. It can't be forced, can't be broken. It is a fortress, a barrier that no amount of shouting can breach. Most are slaves to their emotions, to the need to speak, to respond, to defend. But silence is mastery. It's the art of letting the ego destroy itself, unraveling slowly in the absence of validation. It's the cruelest mirror, reflecting back nothing but the emptiness of its own need. Silence feeds on the hunger of others, feeds on their desperation, on the way their pride withers in its presence. Because silence is the reminder that words are not needed to cut, to wound, to make them doubt everything they thought they knew. It's the void that swallows their ego whole, leaving nothing but shattered pride in its wake. And when you wield silence as a weapon, you become untouchable. The chaos rages around you. The accusations fly, but you remain still. Still and deadly. Still and serene. Because silence isn't passivity. It's control. Control over yourself, over your reactions, over the very atmosphere of the room. Silence shifts the balance of power, forces the world to bend to its will. It's the void that draws in everything and gives nothing back. The ego cannot stand against silence, cannot tolerate its own insignificance. Silence suffocates the ego, chokes it, strangles it, until there is nothing left but a hollow shell of self-doubt. Silence is the first step, the severance, the rupture. But silence alone is not enough. After the silence comes the real test, the power to say no. Because silence cuts them off, makes them irrelevant. But saying no, that's the assertion of your will. It's the barrier you raise between yourself and the world that seeks to use you, the world that seeks to drain you of every drop of energy, of patience, of life. It's the word that transforms silence into a blade that carves boundaries where none existed before. Saying no is where most falter. Silence is passive, it's a refusal, but saying no is active defiance, it's rebellion. It's not just closing the door, it's locking it, bolting it, fortifying it against those who would claw their way back into your mind, your time, your existence. And when you say no, when you utter that single defiant word, the world trembles. Because no is the word that shatters expectations, the word that breaks the chains of obligation, the word that separates what you choose from what others would impose upon you. Saying no is the beginning of real power, the kind that the world fears, the kind that cannot be swayed, cannot be persuaded. No one expects you to wield silence, to shut out the noise, but they demand that you remain agreeable, pliable, accommodating, that you nod, that you say yes when the world comes knocking, when it claws at your door, demanding more, always more. Silence infuriates them, but saying no, that's what turns irritation into rage. Because to say no is to draw a line that can't be crossed. It's to declare that you are no longer a servant to their whims, no longer a puppet to be strung along. And that terrifies people who are used to pulling your strings, people who are used to your compliance. Saying no is liberation, but it's also confrontation. It forces others to face their own powerlessness, their own inability to control you. And that is the ultimate insult. The world loves to devour those who always say yes. It praises self-sacrifice, idolizes compliance, glorifies submission disguised as kindness. It wants you to break yourself for it, to bend, to yield, to say yes until you're empty, hollow, drained of everything. But saying no is refusal. It's the refusal to self-destruct, the refusal to be a sacrificial lamb on the altar of others' convenience. Most won't dare. Because saying no means facing the backlash, the anger, the accusations. It means standing firm while the world screams for your compliance. It means embracing the role of the villain, of the one who dares to prioritize self-preservation over self-sacrifice, the one who chooses to build their own fortress instead of throwing themselves onto the pyre of others' expectations. Silence makes them uneasy, but saying no makes them hate you. And that hatred is the mark of your independence. the mark that you are no longer something to be used and discarded. Saying no is a battle against the world, against the demands, against the endless pull of obligations that seek to drown you. But the greatest battle is the one within, because there's a part of you, a part that's been trained to submit, to yield, that recoils at the thought of refusal. A part that whispers of guilt, of shame, of obligation. A part that wants to keep saying yes, that wants to be liked, that wants to be accepted. And that part must be crushed. It must be silenced. Because saying no is more than a word. It's the annihilation of weakness, the obliteration of the self that craves acceptance over strength. Learn to say no, and learn to say it with finality, without explanation, without apology. Because every time you say yes when you mean no, you become weaker. Every time you bend, you break. Every time you submit, you surrender a piece of yourself that can never be reclaimed. And once the world sees that it can make you yield, it will never stop. It will demand more and more until there's nothing left of you but a shell that says yes to every burden, every request, every manipulation, until you are hollow, a puppet dancing on strings made of guilt. No is the blade that cuts through those strings. It's the weapon that cleaves through obligation, that severs every tie that sought to bind you. And the more you wield it, the sharper it becomes. At first, it will feel wrong, feel alien, because you've been conditioned to say yes, to comply. But each no you utter builds a wall, a fortress of self-preservation, of strength. Each no is a declaration that you own yourself, that your time, your energy, your life is not up for grabs. Each no is an act of rebellion, an act of war against everything that seeks to pull you into submission. The world hates the word no, because no is final, no is immovable, no is the door that slams shut and stays shut. But that is precisely why it is so powerful. It's the word that separates the strong from the weak, the masters from the servants, the ones who control their own destiny from the ones who let the world dictate their every move. No is not just a refusal. It's an affirmation of self, of power, of unbreakable resolve, an affirmation that says, I choose where my energy flows, and it flows where I decide. So, after the silence, let the word no become your mantra. Let it become your armor, your shield against the endless tide of demands. Let it become the blade that cuts away everything that seeks to drain you. After silence comes refusal. After refusal comes invisibility. The path of silent growth. The path where power is cultivated in darkness, where strength is amassed without display, where transformation happens beneath the surface, unseen by prying eyes. Loose lips are the harbingers of downfall. A single slip of the tongue, a single boast, and all that you've built can crumble to nothing. To grow silently is to grow securely, for true power never announces itself. It swells in the shadows, expands in the obscurity, waiting for the moment it's too late for anyone to stop it. The great forces of nature, rivers carving through stone, roots splitting solid rock, perform their miracles in silence. No fanfare, no proclamation. A tree grows unnoticed until it towers above everything else, its roots deep, unshakable, because it spent its early years hidden, focused, determined. There's a lesson in that. Growth that's flaunted is growth that's fragile. Just like a sapling ripped from the ground to show how tall it's become. The roots aren't strong enough to withstand the light. And so too must your growth remain concealed, your progress shielded from those who would tear it apart before it's ready to stand on its own. There are 4 kinds of people in this world. The first kind talks the talk, but doesn't walk the walk. These are the ones who live in the fantasy of their own grandiosity, wrapped in the illusion of greatness that never materializes. Their words are a distraction, a mask for the hollow emptiness of their inaction. The second kind talks the talk and walks the walk. Admirable, perhaps, but flawed. Their success is on display, inviting sabotage, drawing the attention of those who would love nothing more than to see them fall. The third kind does neither. They're the defeated, the resigned, the ones who surrendered to mediocrity long ago. No words, no actions, just a quiet acceptance of their insignificance. But the fourth kind is different. The fourth kind walks the walk, but never talks the talk. These are the silent juggernauts, the ones who build their empires stone by stone, unnoticed, unbothered. They don't need validation. They don't need applause. They move in silence, building power in the dark, like roots stretching deep, like currents beneath the calm surface of a lake. No proclamations, no fanfare, just relentless progress. By the time anyone notices, it's too late. The foundation is set, the strength unshakable. This is the kind you should aim to be, always. For in silence lies safety. In secrecy lies power. When you talk the talk, you paint a target on your back. You give away your strategy, reveal your intentions, expose yourself to those who wait in the wings, ready to cut you down the moment you stumble. But when you walk the walk in silence, you become untouchable. You become a force that no one sees coming, a storm that builds without warning. No one can sabotage what they can't see. No one can counter what they don't know exists. And when the world finally catches a glimpse of what you've built, it's already towering above them, unmovable, indomitable. Loose lips are the cracks that weaken the hull, the gaps that let the water seep in, that sink the greatest of ships. But silence is an armor, a fortress that no one can breach. Keep your plans hidden, your goals veiled, your ambitions buried deep. Because once you've spoken of your intent, it loses some of its power. It becomes diluted by the opinions of others, twisted by the envy of those who can't bear to see you rise. Keep your silence until your roots are deep, until your foundation is unbreakable, until your power is something that no amount of malice can undo. Aim to be the fourth kind, the kind that needs no audience, that thrives in the solitude of its own discipline, that grows without seeking recognition. Because when you build in silence, your strength is yours alone. It's untainted, untouched by the eyes of those who would wish it undone. It's a strength that no one can prepare for, that no one sees coming until it's too late. Walk the walk. Let your actions shape the world. But leave your words unspoken. Let the silence speak for you. Let the results announce your presence, not your voice. In the end, the greatest power lies in what is not said, in the plans that are not shared, in the victories that are achieved long before the world even knew a battle was being fought. So hold your tongue, clench your jaw, and let the silence be your ally. For loose lips sink big ships, but silence is the tide that rises slowly, steadily, until it drowns everything in its path. Silence is the true weapon of the strong, the shadow that moves unseen, the predator that strikes without warning, the force that builds in darkness until the day it explodes into the light. unopposed, unstoppable. Be that force. Be the one who walks the walk and lets the silence do all the talking. Magic. It's not in incantations or spells, not in luck or some cosmic coincidence. No, the real magic happens in the spaces where pain and persistence collide. It's born in the moments when every fiber of your being screams to stop, when the weight of the world bears down on your shoulders, when the agony of failure gnaws at your resolve, and yet you don't stop. That's where it lives, in the stubborn refusal to quit, in the relentless defiance of despair. The universe, for all its chaos and unpredictability, respects a heart that refuses to break, a soul that refuses to surrender. Most crumble at the first sign of struggle, give up when things get uncomfortable, when the path is shrouded in darkness, when there's no applause, no accolades, no signs of progress. They want results served on a silver platter, want the reward without the sacrifice, want the triumph without the bloodshed. But the universe doesn't yield to the weak-willed. It tests, it twists, it torments. It takes you to the brink of your own destruction, not to break you, but to see if you have the audacity to continue when the entire world has gone dark. Those who bend under the pressure, who fold, who take the easy way out, they never see the magic. They never glimpse the impossible made real. But those with the iron hearts, those who defy logic, who keep clawing their way forward even when every door has slammed shut, those are the ones who summon the impossible into being. The universe bends for those who refuse to bow. It yields for those who outlast every storm, who endure when endurance seems like madness. Stubbornness isn't a flaw. It's a weapon. A weapon against mediocrity, against fate, against every barrier that dares to stand in the way. Pain, struggle, exhaustion, these are the universe's way of asking, how badly do you want it? Most answer by letting go, by walking away, by crumbling into nothing. But a stubborn heart sinks its teeth in and never lets go. It's relentless, unyielding, refusing to release its grip, no matter how many times the world tries to tear it apart. And that's what the universe waits for, that unwavering resolve, the will to push through the agony, to defy the odds, to spit in the face of despair and drag yourself forward, inch by brutal inch. The universe loves a stubborn heart because a stubborn heart doesn't just desire, it demands, it commands, it wills things into existence through sheer unrelenting persistence. It's the dogged determination to keep pushing, to keep bleeding, to keep crawling forward through the mud and the chaos, knowing that every drop of blood, every scar, every agonizing step is a declaration. I am still here.